Graham, you devoted your first chapter to monsters. What exactly is a flying spaghetti monster?
Okay, flying spaghetti monster is a parody religion. The idea is that these guys have made up a false god or a god that they pretend to believe in. They call it the flying spaghetti monster, which made the world so many thousand years ago. And they would like intelligent design taught in schools because the flying spaghetti monster made the world. They call themselves pastafarians. And the whole idea is to mock Christianity, you know, and the idea is that faith in any god is as ridiculous as believing in that a flying spaghetti monster made the world. Because if faith is blind, if there's no evidence to faith, well then you can believe anything that you want at all. So you can use faith to justify belief in any nonsense. You can believe in tooth fairies, you can believe in Santa, you can believe in flying spaghetti monsters. And the problem with it is, as I try to illustrate very early on in the book, is that is just not how the Bible treats faith. That's just not how Christianity treats faith. Faith is not the absence of reason. Faith is about placing your trust in someone, and that can be done for good reasons. So the flying spaghetti monster, while I'm sure undergraduates find it hilarious, and it's a wonderful way for them to spend time when they're away from lectures making up little parodies of religion, it really doesn't address some very serious issues at all. You know, it just skips past them.
And we could believe in the Loch Ness monster? Can Christians learn anything from Nessie?
Yeah, I do actually spend some time in the first chapter talking about Nessie, and probably one of the most disappointing things I encountered with this book was that I do not believe that there is a plesiosaur in Loch Ness. What I wanted to do was to look at some of the more outlandish theories that there are out there, because the idea is new atheists are trying to say believing in God is like believing in a conspiracy theory. It's for the people who wear, you know, tinfoil hats on their head to keep the alien thoughts out. It's that crazy a theory. And so what I decided to do is, well, let's look at why somebody can believe in God, and let's also look at some of these more way out theories. And the one that I looked at took my interest was this idea that there's a plesiosaur in Loch Ness. And I spent a bit of the first chapter just explaining in detail why, you know, the Academy's quite right to dismiss this idea. But what that does is it gives us an excuse to talk about, well, what does or doesn't make a good explanation? You know, are the principles here we can learn about explanations? Now, it's not just all about the Loch Ness monster. Look at some examples from science as well, and some much more down-to-earth examples of good explanations. But Loch Ness, yeah, that's one that I've looked at in a wee bit of detail. And as disappointing as it is, I don't think there's a plesiosaur in there.
Are there true monsters?
Yeah, the true monsters do appear in the book on several occasions. One of the more sinister conspiracy theories out there is that Adolf Hitler was not responsible for the Holocaust, Holocaust denial. And that's a much more serious theory and an outlandish theory. And I spent a bit of time explaining, you know, why we know that Adolf Hitler was responsible for the Holocaust, even though we don't have any documents where he writes down an order. It's been called the unwritten order by one historian, but historians know this are sure that Adolf Hitler was responsible. There's no doubt about this. So that's one monster I look at. I also look at the Ipswich serial killer, how police officers were able to work out who this serial killer was, even though there was no eyewitness who could say, I seen him commit the crimes. Even though there was no smoking gun, there were a number of coincidences that could only be explained if one particular person was the criminal. So you're using these ideas of what makes a good explanation and what everybody accepts to be a good explanation, and then you're saying, well, then let's look at the belief that God exists. Does that make sense out of the universe? Does that make sense of our world? And God comes out as a very good explanation, a very sensible, robust explanation, not at all like the conspiracy theories, not at all like cryptozoology or parapsychology or any of these way out disciplines. It's good, robust, sensible theory that does explain the world around us.